Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Church Encourager podcast. Today, we're going to be looking at the discussion guide from Kingdom Influence, part 16. And this was like part B of our talk about what Jesus was talking about when he says, "You are the salt of the earth." And what does it mean to you, Dad, when Jesus says you're the salt of the earth rather than, hey, try to become salt?
Yeah, so and you did a great job the first week in bringing out the idea that it's identity language.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, oh, this is it's who we are because of who he is and because of who he is in us, that we have this impact on the world, in particular by how we live, and that we have to be aware of that. And it's not trying harder to be salty. It's just, staying connected to the source, as we talked about, and allow Holy Spirit to change us with the understanding that the way we live makes a difference. And, that was kind of the big tie-in this week, was that salt makes a difference. But it does it, sort of quietly, but things change significantly when salt is around. And so we just have to understand that that's who we are. It's an identity thing. It's like being imagers of God. It's all tied together. That's what we are. And without trying harder, but by yielding more, so it's who we are and also who we're becoming, right? Because we are becoming more like him, hopefully, on this journey as we spend more time yielded to Holy Spirit and understanding what he wants, and going from there. So that's what it's about, that our lives definitely have purpose, and can absolutely make a difference in the world. We have to be aware of that. So if we get stuck sort of with us at the center of the story, I think we're probably less impactful, but we're not less salt. We're just not doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Sure. You mentioned drift, and you actually quoted Hebrews chapter 2, verse 1 about paying careful attention to what we have heard so that we don't drift away. What practices do you think we can implement to help us stay attentive to God's voice amidst all the noise of our daily lives?
So, making this time with him a priority, um, being aware of the things that try and steal it away, and how it drifts. It's a creep. It's little by little. It's again, I'm not picking on social media, but it can start with, for most people, I think it's fairly short, and then all of a sudden it's very easy. Not everybody does it, to get caught up in, like, you see something that's funny, and then all of a sudden everything that person has ever done pops up,
Mm-hmm.
and you can, without, all of a sudden, an hour can be gone, or more, and you've just kind of been caught, and that can steal away from other time. It's because it's funny, we can find time for that, but sometimes it's very difficult to find time to press in, pray, read your word, do the things and we're not earning anything. It's just relationships need to be tended to, right? Yeah, I don't know if that's a great word or not, but they matter and they take time. You have to make sure that you're spending time with your families, and with your, where you can, with your friends and with the church and where others, because those relationships, they really matter, and we have to be aware. So I like a structure of things that help me stay connected. And that's the things can change over time, but the structure, like when for me, I like a early morning, and yet, there's things, if I don't clear off first, then I'm thinking about them while I'm trying to hang out with the Lord. Since I'm up very early, I have several hours of my day to get sort of going, and for me, it looks like, making sure, my email, anything critical, and then little bits of information that I might need to get straightened out. I'll get that done, and I will generally go to the Bible Institute and grade papers. That's sort of one of the things I do. And then we have this Kingdom Encouragers thing that we do.
Mm-hmm.
where there's some Bible reading every day and usually some videos and stuff. And it doesn't take real long, 15, 20 minutes. I'll kind of move into that next. And then as often as I can, I like to do a thing that I've talked about for years, the daily office, which is a very sort of structured prayer time that's been going on for hundreds of years in the church. And particularly the morning office, which has readings and prayers and psalms. And it's just a real nice mix of things. And I really enjoy doing that. And then sometimes I'll find that during the daily office I might drift, and so I'll do something different. I don't want to be
Sure.
locked in, but I do want to keep for me, a structure of those kind of things is helpful. And then, checking in at different times during the day with the Lord is one of the things you get to do in the daily office if you want. Um, but just being aware of how important that is, and then structuring a time to make that happen. And so for me, I'm up early. I go to bed early too. I always say that. But once you kind of shift your schedules, that will happen. But I don't find that there's a lot holding me to late at night anyway. So I don't feel like I'm missing anything. And I'm
Sure.
just
Sure.
carving out quiet time when it's available. When I was younger, when we had, and you guys were young babies, um, when I was studying for ministry and stuff, I would have to do that in a completely different way. So oftentimes it would be like 11 or 12 before I could even start that at night.
Mm.
And then I would spend a couple of 3 hours doing those things and then sleep for 4 or 5 hours and then get up and get around with my day because I had to, I needed to I had to work and I had to have
Yeah.
time with kids. I had to have time with Alice. I had to, and so it can change, but it needed to be a structure or things just never happened.
Yeah. I'm thankful for the internet and resources like the Online Bible Institute that let you train for ministry at your own time. And it's always admirable to see just how your schedules changed over the years. You spent when I was a teenager before I got married and moved out. You would spend evenings just working on SEO stuff, search engine optimization, and building websites. And you're using that today for God's glory. So it's just being faithful with the time you have and intentional with it and using that. So, you're a great role model for that and for all of us listening. So thank you for that. Another
Mhm.
thing you had mentioned, moving on with the discussion questions, Paul instructs us to do everything without grumbling or arguing. which is which can be hard for some of us. Why do you think that's connected to being effective salt in the world, and how can we grow in that area?
I read another passage later on that talked about being thankful. And I've been a big proponent of thankfulness for a long time. Because I think if you can be thankful, it stops the grumbling and complaining quite a bit, the arguing, because you kind of get to make a choice every day. Are you going to be thankful for what is going on, or are you going to be sort of, I don't know what the right word is, envious of what's not going on and letting that get in the way of enjoying what God has been doing? And I think a lot of people miss on life because they're so waiting for what they think needs to be right, and they miss what it is. And it's just really important that if you find yourself sort of super critical and grumbly, take a good inward look. What's going on? And a lot of that can be sort of straightened back out again by getting your attitude as one of thankfulness and sort of looking at what matters. Because I teased at every service. I think when I brought that message up, like Paul, that this is really hard because there's a lot of grumbling that goes on.
Yeah, to say the least.
Honestly, it's like seriously because I am so far away from getting that one down. But I understand the reality of it and why it's sort of there, and how important it is. And so it's often just getting that where we fit in the story, right? That we matter in the story. This is a big deal. People are like, I think they want to know that they matter and they count and they have value because that's important. Um, but then we often will try and get that in places where we can't or we shouldn't.
Hmm.
And it needs to come in our understanding of who we are in the Lord. So it's always an identity thing. I'm his kid, and he loves me. And my circumstances might not always be what I want, but he can use them, and I know he's trustworthy. And so I'm going to hang with him and try not to get, unsettled by things that aren't going my way. And everything changes over time. A lot of it has to do with, I think, our age and the things that we're into, and the different sort of seasons of life, and all those things are you kind of well, you've got kids now, but they're young, but not that young now. You got a 10 and a 12.
Yeah.
And you can look back 10 years and remember as infants.
Oh my
And
goodness. Yeah.
and see, and yet when you think about it, as difficult as those times were, there's also some times in there that you don't get to have again, where
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
just, and now they becoming young men, and you're like, I kind of liked it at 4 or 5 or whatever that age was
Yeah,
then.
like 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that's a thing the kids do. But that was, we're going to Legoland in a week, and we've been going there for 6 years. And 6 years ago, it was the biggest place on earth to them. And so now, like, they're sort of at the older age of what that park really caters to. And it's like they're going to be too old for this in a few years. And just kind of coming to that realization, like, that, you have to enjoy the moment that you have in that moment. And, it's nice to reflect on it. And there were times when they were younger, it was the hardest season of life. I have gray hair now because of that season. It was really difficult, but I wouldn't change it. I'm thankful for what God's done. But yeah, just being thankful, and learning to be thankful even when it's hard. I was, watching a NT Wright video, and he was talking about Psalm 42 and 43. And a lot of it is holding on to the hope that I'm going to praise again, like I've praised in the past when I'm going through a season of darkness. And, that's a good thought to hold on to, I think, as we kind of think about this
Is
stuff
that the
that
deer
even,
panting by the water one?
I think so, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right at the start of 42. And he's like, there's three movements and these two psalms belong together. And,
yeah, yeah.
he's brilliant. But anyway, Psalm 42, 43. If you're listening, go read those. Good read. We'll do this question, and I think we'll call it a podcast. How can we tell the difference between being distinctively Christian versus being weird or superior? And what should our distinctiveness actually look like?
Um, well, see, this is again, we've talked about this a lot in this series. The challenge is not to go like legalistically
Mhm.
religious in thinking that that's what we're supposed to be. That's what makes us different. It's not. We live in the culture. We have to operate in the culture. It's where God's placed us. Um, but we don't want to become so much like it that we don't have an impact. So that's the whole issue. So that's a hard line to draw. And I'm not saying that we've got it figured out, but other people, I mean, how do we live in this culture in a way that um still allows us to present Jesus as attractive, right? I mean, in that way, because Jesus certainly did it.
Mhm.
And uh and yeah, so how can we be a part and yet not consumed is the daily struggle. I think why we have to that's why it's so important that we maintain our relationship with the Lord, and we're very careful about the information that we're taking in. Now, I'm sure I sound like a broken record on Sundays, but I am. We started this series, and one of my things when we got started was there's so much information out there now that people are just taking in without pressing through at all, and people will even they'll make it sound biblical and stuff, but
Mhm.
the enemy can use a Bible. You have to be very careful. Is that at the heart of it? Is that the context? Is that what we're called to? Is that helping me? Is it putting me in a spot where I can still present the gospel to people? when the opportunity arises, or are my opinions making it so that many of the people in the culture won't listen to me because I've made my opinion so strong in one area that I never get the opportunity because they write me off then. Because that's the I hope people see that. I don't pick on it. It's like opinions have grabbed this place in our culture where they've elevated themselves far above the value of people. And now if our opinions don't line up, then often it's just, well, then I don't value you as a person. And I think that's so difficult that we sort of hang on to the distinctiveness of what it means to be a follower of Jesus with an understanding that, we do live in the culture. And so um, I don't know, it's a lot of it's kindness and encouragement and understanding, this is a fallen world, broken planet. I think some of it is not, not being surprised when people that don't know Jesus live like they don't know Jesus.
All right.
And and then at the same time, it's sort of getting how desperately we need Jesus and how careful we have to be. Just because something's all right in the culture doesn't mean that it's okay for us. But how do we balance that and not come off as weird? I mean, we're a peculiar people. The Bible says that, but some people take it to a spot where it's just weird. And I often think this is a hard enough journey without being weird. I mean, don't and then
Right.
justify it by well, it's a balance. I don't want to be judgmental. I'm just saying it's tricky. That's why we bring these things up. We talk about them. It's a journey, right? And that we hopefully are getting as we continue to draw closer to the Lord, hopefully we reflect him more and more.
Yeah, good stuff. And it was a great message. Thanks for helping us stay effective as salt without drifting away or diluting. So, yeah, everybody listening, thank you so much. Join us for our Bible Institutes podcast Thursday on the app and the YouTube, as well as our church services this weekend. We'll be in part 17 of Kingdom Influence, starting into light. So, going to be really good. Anyway, thank you, Dad. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, Doug.